Hello, this is Group A43. Our group members include Maeve Nagel, Rachel Lee, Jessica Adams, and Rachel Adams. Our topic we've been researching is, why do organisms build tissues they seemingly never use? To get started, let's go over some terminology that will be important in our discussion. Phylogeny is the evolutionary history of a group of organisms. These histories are depicted in phylogenetic trees. Ontogeny is the developmental changes within an individual's lifetime. The last term is vestigial traits. These are reduced structures that seem to serve little purpose. Some examples of these are the small leg bones found in whales and the human appendix. Biologists have observed that organisms develop structures that they do not seem to need or use. Researchers have developed three main theories to explain this process. Those theories are the developmental disruption force theory, the intermediate building blocks theory, and the ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny theory.
First, we'll introduce the developmental disruption force. This concept explains that individuals go through the same progression as a species always has in order to avoid disrupting a developmental process that works. Basically, if it's not broken, don't fix it. This selection against change is important because it prevents the loss of vestigial structures. Now you may be wondering, why is this useless vestigial tissue so important? Well, the fact is, it's not. However, a single gene can code for multiple traits, so the removal of a vestigial gene could result in the deletion of other significant traits and leave the organism worse off than it was in the first place. Therefore, it is in the organism's best interest to put up with a little extra tissue instead of risking losing something essential. Our next topic is intermediate traits and structures. Simple traits are the building blocks of all organisms, bridging the gap to more complex traits. These simple traits appear first, as intermediate steps in the developmental process of fully evolved traits. Any disruption that affects the development of these original simple traits could inhibit the development of more complex traits later on in the developmental process. For this reason, most evolved organisms have held on to their original simple traits, resulting in the existence of intermediate traits and structures.
The ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny theory provides another explanation for why organisms build vestigial traits and structures. The ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny theory states that individuals develop in a similar pattern or order to the way their ancestors originally evolved. Computer programs that simulate evolution show a correlation in developmental and evolutionary order to support the ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny theory. This chart is from a computational evolution study done by Clune, with the size of the dot corresponding to the number of times that both processes developed in the same order. As shown by the data, there is a positive correlation between the developmental order and the evolutionary order, providing further evidence for the ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny theory. Computational evolution studies done by computers provide evidence for the developmental disruption force, intermediate traits, and the ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny theory. These processes suggest that evolutionary mechanisms are the reason that organisms produce vestigial traits and structures.
Due to the selection against changes in early development and the need for intermediate structures, ontogeny tends to recapitulate phylogeny, which explains why organisms build tissues they seemingly never use.